Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes tonight. I'm joined by Stephen Ray. It's half-time at Celtic Park and it is Celtic 0, Roma 3. Stephen, just before I came on, we were both sitting there just shaking your head because you look at that 45-minute performance. Anyone in the comment section has found anything positive, give us a shout. We're often told that we're being too negative. Stephen, that was poor. I'm struggling to find anything of note. Quite shambolic, actually, as a performance.
Yeah. What I feared might happen is actually playing it in front of my eyes. We're coming up against a team that I called streetwise, full of know-how, experienced players, and we just fell into every single trap they set for us. I mentioned Evan Ferguson was touted as the next £100 million player. He played like £100 million striker. You know, the finish, the second goal was just what a touch and finish, unbelievable. Yeah, it's men against boys out there. I don't even know if it's down to, I don't know if it's systems or whatever. I just think, and we're just struggling to keep the ball under pressure. Nygren, you know, it's like kicking the ball off a steel railing when you kick it to him because you don't know what way it's going to go, what way it's going to bounce. And if MD he grew up at the same age as us, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about there.
You're spot on.
It's really poor. And then just to top it off, that penalty right at the end. I actually didn't realise we got a penalty. I was too busy setting up, and then I put the iPad on, and yeah, it just sums up the whole first half. We'd never Tenetke, empty shirt, Nygren just weak in possession, weak in challenges. You know, it's brutal stuff, and yeah, we're just inviting them on to us. And we got to about 30 minutes, and I was praying to get to half time 1-0 because I couldn't see it being any better than that.
You know this, Stephen, I think when you're doing the match day stuff, you try your best to analyse it to a level, not to the analytical level of an Alan Morrison, but from an observer's perspective. And you look at the performance and think, right, what can I pull from this that has worked well? Sometimes it's individual performances, sometimes it's the shape and the way that we're approaching it. And I'm struggling to find that. I'm looking at a Celtic team who seem bereft of confidence, which is bizarre when you think about it, because even though the performances were not always great under Martin O'Neill, what I seen was a team who had momentum behind them. You know, they had wind in their sails, Stephen. They had that confidence. They had a belief that they could win the game. And over the last week or so, I've seen a team who now are playing as if they've never played together. Now, I didn't agree with Nygren and Tunecki coming in against Hearts, and I don't agree that they should have been playing tonight. I gave my team at 12:30. They weren't in it. I don't think they showed anything against Hearts that meant they deserved a starting jersey tonight. Like you say, that was a great way to describe Nygren. Nothing sticking. He's given the ball away, I would suggest, more than anybody else on the park. And Tunecki, I think, one time, near the end of the first half, he runs at the defence. He creates a wee chance and plays in Tierney. Other than that, like you say, an empty shirt. I'm wondering why they're playing in the first place, because it's certainly not in form, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, people have called the manager ballsy coming in and changing up the system. I don't think he's been ballsy enough with his selections, if I'm honest. Yang's been okay. You know, nothing much has really come down the right-hand side, so they've not really had much joy from that side. You know, the Tenetke at one of the goals was just, he just let his guy go. It was just lazy. It was absolutely pathetic.
It exposed Kieran Tierney, didn't it? Big time.
Yeah, that was for the second goal. But then obviously Scales has dropped back further than the other centre back, so he's played the player on twice. He's played on the first pass and he's played on Ferguson for the finish. I don't really blame him for the second one, but the first one he's not in line with the centre backs, the other centre backs. Yeah, we look dysfunctional. We look bereft of ideas. But I mean, Hatate had a great chance. He's got to do better with it. You know, I think that was Nygren that actually put him in. The thing is, Nygren, when he gets at 20, 25 yards from goal and he's facing up the goal, he is dangerous. But when he's back to play or you're needing him to make a pass in midfield, it's unlikely it's going to find its man. You pass the ball to him and it's springing up, you know, to sort of chest height. So you're losing that 2-3 seconds of time and space. And before he's got it under control, they're on him. Yeah, we've come up against a team who are well coached, well drilled, full of experience, full of know-how, and it's telling. We're really, really struggling out there, and I'm actually worried about the second half. I was praying that penalty went in just to give us a spark. I've just seen the first goal, and I mean, that's Scales has won his header, but it's so unlucky. It just sums us up at them during this game.
This again. This is something I did after the Hearts game, and it wasn't to try and extract excuses for the new manager by any manner of means. But I was looking at margins, and I thought to myself, if this, if that, and I focused on Engels' his chance, Hatate hitting the bar, the fact that the tactical changes, actually did work for us. If I was to do that in that first half, I would definitely be coming across, Stephen, like I'm making excuses, because yes, Scales is unlucky. He wins the header. We'd be screaming at him if he didn't make the effort to win the header. But that element of surprise in the Hearts game, if Roma have watched it, they've carbon copied the crossing and scoring from a corner. And I think that when we then look at Engels, that little glimmer of hope near the end of the first half. Here's the thing. I don't know if you noticed this, because I know you were setting up, right? But I think Kasper Schmeichel is cutting a very frustrated figure at the moment, right? And see, leading up to the goal, and Engels wins the penalty, rather, not the goal. Engels wins the penalty. It was almost as if Schmeichel just booted the ball out in frustration. He's been very precise with his passing, Stephen. He's played so many of his passes to Maeda. But this time, it was almost as if he just John Smithed it up the park. It was like he's had it, right? And then we created a chance from it. We actually got a chance from this. It was just a hoof up the park, and we get the penalty kick. But that's a bit concerning that Schmeichel, but when you look at the bags of experience that he's got, I'm not saying he's chucked it by any manner of means, absolutely not. But he is so frustrated out there. It's almost as if, what, the game plan's not working. What do we do at half time? The eternal optimist in me asks the question, Stephen, what do we do to try and stem this?
It's that, you're praying that Roma go happy with 3 up the road, 3 points, 3-0 will take it. But you're kind of praying for that. But if Celtic show any intent of coming out, they could pick us off, and it could be, a really disastrous night. I'm actually thinking back. I remember it was a night we actually played really well and created lots of chances. It was against Leverkusen at home, and we ended up getting thumped 4-0. But it didn't feel like a 4-0 on the night.
Yep.
Tonight feels like, at halftime, it feels like a 3-0. It could have been more. Although we have created 2 or 3 decent chances, and obviously should have buried the penalty. I think Taneki's got to come off. I think Nygren's got to come off. I would probably, if he's fit enough to get 45 minutes out, I'd maybe move Maeda to wide left. I'd put Iniacho up. I think we need a runner. I think Bernardo probably has to come on. I think Engels looks uncomfortable in that 10 slot, or one of the 2 10s, or the 2 forward box players. I'd drop him back, because Hatate's definitely playing deeper. There's almost like 2 pivots. But Hatate in possession, you worry. He does give it away a lot. At least if he does it in the final third, then you've got 2/3 of the park to recover. But yeah, that's at least 2 subs I'd make. I'd probably Bernardo and Iniacho for Nygren and Taneki. That's what I think anyway.
I was concerned going into the Hearts game around the inclusion of Nygren and Taneki, because I thought to myself, what on earth has Nancy looked at here to suggest that these 2 guys need to come in for this game? Now, I think Nygren, if I was to watch back the games, the match coverage of the early games this season, I'm probably calling Nygren a snip at 1.7 million, Stephen. And I think, going back to a point you made about Palmer, he was producing. He was producing goals. He was producing assists. And it's like what you say, when he's up that end of the park, he looks pretty dangerous. His ball retention tonight has been dreadful. As I say, I think there's 4 or 5 occasions where he's given the ball away. I don't know why he came back in. Martin O'Neill, for the last 3 or 4 games, Tuneki and Nygren were not starting. All of a sudden, they're thrown in as starters for the first 2 games under Nancy. I think both players have to come off at half-time. See, in terms of the shape, because obviously we've got philosophy and we've got approach and all that kind of stuff. For me, the game's gone. The game has been lost this evening. I don't want us to go through that process again, Stephen. And we've all seen it. We've seen what PSG did to us, Borussia Dortmund, Barcelona. I don't want another night like this. That is fresh in my mind, and I'm thinking we need to approach the second half in a way where we're not as open and we're not as easy to play against. Do you think the approach and the philosophy takes priority for a coach like Nancy over, you know what, don't get beat 5, 6 or 7-0 here?
In a way, he could probably say, this is what I've walked into. This is the team you've left me with. You know, you're asking me to compete in Europe and try and win the league. And this is the players that, you know, they're not going to do it for me. So we need a clear out. You know, is there a bit of the Kevin Felwell's going on with the football operations guy, where it was rumoured that he was making the Rangers manager play the Chermiti, I think it was, up front, because he was the big outlay? Is that what's going on with Tanecki and Negrin, that they're the two sort of summer signings under this football operations guy, and he's insisting that they're starting in the game? But then the feedback you get is Nancy's, you know, he'll not take, you know, advice from board members or people above him. He's his own man. So I hope that's not the case. I just hope he's picked them based on, you know, he's seen them and they've shown up well in training, but they've definitely been really poor. Hearts and tonight again. Yeah, it's a big second half. You know, I think the scoreline is what Roma want it to be. If we get one back, they'll make it 4. That's just, I think they're that much levels above us that they'll see it out to what the scoreline they want it to be within reason. I can't see any way back into this. The only way back in is we get 2 quick goals and then momentum. We all know in football is mental. It can go anywhere. But yeah, it's Italian teams they're absolutely ruthless. We've seen it in the past, and we're paying a heavy price for it tonight.
We are. One final point I would make here, just as we go back into the second half, Stephen, is the Celtic fans out there bearing a horrific night of rainfall booed the team off the park. Earlier on in the night, Joe Hart was heard to say, and this is a guy who obviously has lived the dream. He says there's just no atmosphere at Celtic Park tonight. This is a European game. It's almost as if the stuffing has been knocked out of us, punched out of us here, Stephen. And I'm sitting, obviously, we've spoken about some of the decisions that have been made by the club behind the scenes in relation to shutting out Celtic fans in the form of the Green Brigade, shutting out Celtic fans in the form of fan media. This is on these people who have made the decisions. This did not happen because of one transfer window. This is not one defeat against Kairat that's created an uprising of Celtic fans who are unhappy with the way the club is being run. And I think we're seeing it play out in front of us tonight. This is what happens if you don't act like a big football club. Forget all that world-class nonsense. You should be basically acting like a Champions League club. We've not done it in the transfer window. We've not done it in the way that we treated our ex-manager with that Monday night statement, and we're not doing it with our fans. This is the result of it, Stephen. You're getting an absolute pummeling at home.
I'm just seeing Bernardo is coming on and Iheanacho's coming on, so I've called that one.
You text Nancy, didn't you? Aye, that's a great shout. Well, that's a great shout because I don't expect Bernardo to come on, so I thought that's a brilliant shout.
I think we need somebody who can run it, and I think Nengels needs to drop back. So I think Donovan's coming on as well, so there's 3 changes. So
who's the third change?
I would imagine Yang's coming off, so...
Interesting times.
Just quickly on the transfer, you could stretch this back to Angie's last transfer window. Apart from Alistair Johnson, there was a whole load of nonsense brought in that January, and it's sort of carried on pretty much ever since. The club have set this up for themselves, and it's on them. You know, you can blame any manager you like, but you know this is on the guys holding the power, and a result, if this turns into a 5 or 6 at home, then God help them. I actually feel sorry for Nancy because it's going to fall at his door and it's not going to fall at the board's.
This is the concern, isn't it? With the cup final just round the corner, let's go and enjoy, if that's the right word.
It's actually Kieran Tierney has come off. So, Yeah,
Right.
so there's the second half kicked off.
Hopefully it's not an injury. Let's go and watch the second half, Stephen, and you will join me at full time on a Celtic state of mind.